Hey guys, it's Beth, and today I just wanted to share with you how I ended up finishing off this K & Company pad that I started in August. And it was a pad by Brenda Walton. And I shared a video last month in August about how, like, all the bookmarks that I had made so far from this pad and then how I made those. And then after making the bookmarks, I had a bunch of scraps left, so I will include the video that I did in the description box below, as well as in the cards about how I made the bookmarks. Because on the corner bookmarks, you start with a square, you fold it in half one way, you fold it in half the other way, and you basically have 4 quadrants. You end up cutting one full quadrant off, and then one off, like kind of on the diagonal before you fold it up, and then that's what makes your little pocket. So I was left with all these triangle scraps as well as a full square scrap. So my challenge at the end of that video was to figure out how to use those. And then I also had, I think, 3 sheets of paper from the pad I hadn't used yet because they had a lot of embossing detail or glitter detail that I thought was going to get lost on the bookmarks. So I kind of put my thinking cap on and figured out what I could do with the scrap. So I started with the triangle scrap piece and pulled out some punches, and I actually ended up going to buy a couple more punches because I didn't have any big flower punches. So it was kind of a good excuse to go buy a couple new tools, but I just punched as many flowers as I could out of, you know, this size triangle piece. So I get essentially one big flower and then a couple little flowers. And then after they were all punched, I kind of went through, my daughter and I, we like layered them up. And, you know, just different colors, different types of flowers, and we just made some little layered flower embellishments. So these are some of hers that were left. And then for the square piece, I ended up using a good portion of those as I made pinwheels. So this is one of the pinwheels I made, and I ended up putting it on a card, and that's all of these are cards made with pinwheels. But basically, I made my pinwheel, and then when I put it on the card, I picked another square scrap that kind of coordinated with it, layered that up, and then they're all backed like on a white square mat, and then a colored cardstock mat for the card front. And then down here, the sentiment, I kind of have a couple different sentiments I use throughout the stack, and it's just whichever ones that I had that would go, that were big enough to kind of go most of the length of the card front. So, and I think this color combination is my favorite, the navy and the orange. But here are the rest of them. So these are fun, kind of just a different way to think of those, different way to use those scraps. I like that color combination too, the green and the turquoise. So it's just some bright, cheery cards. And then a different way I used the scraps. I took some inspiration from this card sketch that I found, and there's not a name for it or a name to it, but I will link it in the description box below. But I liked, you know, that it used 3 squares, and I say took inspiration from it because I didn't follow it exactly. It looks like that the 2 squares in the back, they're either smaller or they're cut off. But I didn't do that. I liked the fact that there were 3 squares and then, you know, the strip that came down the center. What I wanted to be able to do was use my squares as they were. I didn't want to have to trim them down or cut them down or punch them out. I really just wanted to use them as they were and use them up quicker. So I still did that strip that came down the middle, and I have my 3 squares. I just kind of layered the strip. It kind of dissects the squares that are in the background a little bit, which is fine. And then I took some of the layered flowers that I had and just kind of added them to either corner of that top square in the middle, and then there's a circle sentiment on all of them as well. So I tried to pick the squares that kind of coordinated, but as far as, you know, the flowers, there's kind of just a bunch of colors on these cards. They're very, again, very bright. And I had to remind myself that all of these papers came together in the pad, so they're all going to go together. and you know, so they're going to look good together, you know. So I kind of had to get out of my head a little bit about thinking, oh, well, I can only use these colors on this card because that's the only colors included in the paper. So it was kind of I tried not to think too hard about it and just, you know, put the cards together. So here, this was one I had some scraps left from when I was cutting down my very first 12 by 12 sheet to figure out how best to get the book, you know, as many bookmarks as I could out. I had a couple of little scraps left, so just kind of layered those up with the sentiment, and then I ended up punching some flowers out of the pad cover that I hadn't used yet. This was that glitter paper. You can see a little bit of glitter there. This was the glitter paper that I didn't use for bookmarks. So I just made it a card front, added another layered flower and some butterflies and a sentiment. And then there's just like all kinds of, it was almost like a collage pattern on that glitter paper. So this is the same sheet, just different colors, different patterns going on. And then this one, these were square scraps again from the bookmarks. And on 3 of them, I managed to get this Chinese lantern like as a focal point when I cut it out. So I just used this green is the back of this Chinese lantern pattern. So I just kind of used those together and kind of made this my focal point, and then just added a little sentiment stamped in one of the corners. And then I had a strip left. Again, I think it was from when I was cutting down that first sheet for the bookmarks. And it's the same pattern it was the same paper as this pinwheel. So I just took the coordinating pinwheel and layered it across the strip. It's like a very basic, simple, clean card, but still, I think it's fun. I got 2 of those. And then on this last one, I was just trying to use up the last of my layered flowers. So I just put them all on this card front, just kind of a hodgepodge of whatever flowers I had left, and then I popped my sentiment up on foam so that it would sit kind of on top of the flowers. And then I did some 5x7. Those were all A2 so far. I did some 5x7 cards using the embossed paper. Can you guys see that at all? There's like, you know, all of the yellow is embossed. And so I wanted to kind of like focus on that and make it more of like the focal point of the card. So I just did a 5x7, added a larger sentiment, a couple of my layered flowers just to add some color, and then there's some punched butterflies as well. And I got 2 versions of that. And then this just another part of that paper, and on this one I added a little bit of Wink Stella to the embossed detail, and then I also added it to my little, these were chipboard butterflies that I punched out of the pad cover. And 2 of those. And then this last one, it's the same part of the paper, I just turned it differently when I put the card together. So this one I just added a punched flower and then some butterflies. And then on this one I took some of the little flower punches that I had and then added a little bit of Nouveau drops and gave it a little bit of color, like a little bit of shine and some dimension. So I got 6 of those 5x7 size cards. And then my daughter made a batch of cards as well. She used a sheet of that glitter paper, and because it had this word bliss, she kind of left that as, she didn't really add a whole lot to the card, just some little banner strips up here and then some bling. And then she took another part of that paper and made another pinwheel. She loved the pinwheels. That's kind of her new crafty focus right now, is making pinwheels. She had a lot of fun. So she made another pinwheel and then just used some white scrap strips and, you know, put those intersecting behind the pinwheel. And then on the rest of these, she did just a strip that goes across and then added her sentiment, and this was her own design. I thought she did a really good job. You know, they're very clean and simple cards. Oops. So I thought she did really good, and we had fun crafting together. So I ended up getting a few more bookmarks out of some of the paper. Like there was a strip of this embossed paper that wasn't embossed, and so rather than using it on a card, I just went ahead and made some more bookmarks. So I ended up getting 63 long bookmarks, 62 corner bookmarks. We got 28 A2 size cards, and then the 6 5x7 cards. And then she does have some embellishments left here. She's got one pinwheel that she hasn't used yet, and then a bunch of just layered flowers that she still wants to use on something. And then she also has a bunch of shapes left. She wanted the shapes, some of the shapes that I had punched out of the pad covers. She wants to use those as little chipboard shape pieces, so that's what we have left, and I'm going to count this as done because she will use these on something, I'm sure. But we used all of the paper, and to think this was, you know, I inherited this pad from my cousin who was destashing, and I explained in the last video about this pad that it wasn't something I probably would have purchased for myself or even really used on a project for myself. But I'm glad I ended up using it because the colors were beautiful. They're very bright and vibrant and just very cheerful. It kind of made me happy working through this pad. So that was a lot of fun. And, you know, to think that I probably would have just ignored it because it wasn't my normal style. So I'm glad I kind of took the chance on this pad, and it got me stocked up. I've got more bookmarks that I can send in my next box of Cards for Soldiers. It got me restocked on the corner bookmarks that I use for my, you know, Etsy order paperwork, and then my daughter and I had a lot of fun making the pinwheels and the cards. So it was a good time. I'm glad I did this pad. And I got, even though I started it in August, I finished it in September, so it counts as another pad that I completed in September. So I am still working on the Happy Fall pad. I will return to that here in, you know, videos. Those videos will return after this. I just wanted to kind of share with you, jump back and share with you how we ended up finishing this one off. But if you have any questions on anything, let me know. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for your time today, and I hope you're having a crafty week.